Good morning, everyone. It's Helen here with Helping Up with Helen. Thank you for joining me. Hopefully, you're all drinking a big cup of coffee this morning right alongside of me. So, today, though, I was reading through an awesome scripture that I wanted to share with everyone. This one was really, really good. It's Philippians 3:13. And here, Paul says that he forgets all things that lie behind so that he can press forward to the things that are ahead. And I believe that is so incredibly important. Obviously, not only was it important to Paul, but it's important for you and I because Paul knew that there was absolutely no way he was going to be able to complete the fullness of his destiny and get to where God wanted him to be if he was carrying the hurts and the pain of the past. Because if you go back, Paul is Saul. Saul was persecuting Christians. He was having them imprisoned. He was having them murdered. He actually was chasing Christians down on the road to Damascus when he had his first encounter with the Lord. And the Lord shined this big bright light down on him, blinded him, literally blinded him. And he says, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And he's like, Lord, who are you? And he's like, I'm Jesus, the one you're persecuting. So he was encountered with the living God right here on the road to Damascus. And he had a choice to make because there's a couple different things he could have done here. But something that comes to mind for me is that he could have spent the rest of his life sitting there feeling sorry for himself. He could have sat there and like, I did so many bad things. I hurt so many people. There's absolutely no way that God can use me now. He could have sat there and lived in self-pity for the rest of his life. But obviously we already know, or we wouldn't be talking about him today. He chose a different path. He chose to get back up, chose to be the fighter that we know Paul as, and he chose to obey the Lord and go and do the Lord's work. So I believe every single day that we are encountered with those same choices. Like, am I going to live here in the past? Am I going to stay in this self-pity? Am I going to stay here in this bitterness and in this resentment? Or am I going to even stay, sometimes people even get trapped in the past of like the good old days. Like, wow, my life was so good, back then. And things were so great back then that they can't even push forward to where God needs them to be right here and right now. And I love this scripture because I feel like that's something that I have dealt with personally in my own life. And I believe we all have to some extent because we've all had things that we've done, right? We've all hurt people. We've all been hurt by people. I believe at some point you've had loss. I know I've had loss. I've talked about it in some of my videos, but there was a period in my life where I had lost my health for years, not days or weeks, but years. I lost my father in my 30s. It was sudden and it was traumatic. And so there was a loss there. And, I've been betrayed by friends and relationships. And so the list goes on, as we all have. And so you have to make those choices because so many of us for a long period of time, we can stay there. If somebody's betrayed you, you can stay there and sit and stir in that anger and that betrayal and that bitterness. And betrayal is hard, but some people never move past that point of pain or, even death, sometimes it's just the pain is so unbelievable that some people can't even move past that point of pain. And, let's kind of talk about that because I understand there is no time limit for mourning. I've just specified that because I've been there myself. However, there is a place in the Bible that I thought was really interesting. It's in the Old Testament, and here we're dealing with Moses, right? The great Moses of the Bible. But Moses passed away. It was his time. He passed away, and so God gave him a period of time to mourn him. So they got together for a series of many, many days and they cried and they celebrated his life and they cried some more. And so there was this whole mourning process. But once that mourning process was up, God was basically more or less like, okay, Moses is dead. Now it's time to get up and move on. Okay, so I remember reading that for the first time thinking like, oh, and it's not that God was being harsh. It was just a matter of fact, like, we need to come to the realization that Moses is gone. Moses was a good man. We all loved him. God loved him more than anyone. But he's just like, Moses is dead. Now I need you to get back up and I need you to get to going to where we had planned, which was the promised land. And so at that point, they had to make that decision to say, okay, we loved Moses. He was a great man. We were a little bit sad, scared, confused on what's next because he was their leader. But we're going to get back up. We're going to trust God. We're going to take this with us, this season, this loss. We're going to carry it in our heart and we're going to move forward. And God knows that also well because we go through different seasons in our life, right? We go through different times that require obviously a season of mourning and hurt and even like a righteous anger sometimes. Like if we are talking about betrayal, you can have that righteous anger, but at some point you have to get back up physically and on the inside. You have to say, okay, I'm going to have to get back up and I'm going to have to leave that behind if I'm ever going to get to where I need to be because that is too heavy. And I can't drag that along with me. And Paul knew that. He says, like, I can't carry my past. There's absolutely no way that I will be able to do everything that God is going to call me to do if I am dragging all that guilt, all that shame, all that hurt, all that pain. So he had to put it in a place, and he had to accept God's and Jesus's forgiveness. He had to accept that. He had to say, I believe that I'm forgiven. I believe that I have a purpose. I believe that those things that I did are fully, completely, what we already know. Jesus took him on the cross, so he was washed clean, and he had to accept that, and he had to believe that in order to be able to push forward. And God used him in a mighty, mighty way. But we all know, and if you read through the book of Acts and on, Paul did not have it easy after this. Paul made a choice to follow the Lord, but life was hard for Paul. You know, just reading through Acts, I mean, he was beaten and whipped and imprisoned and shipwrecked, and all sorts of different things happened to Paul after this point. So life definitely wasn't easy for him, but it was definitely worth it to follow the Lord. So great scripture there. And I just feel like for any of you who might be carrying something with you, I can completely relate to you. I know that it's something that I've been struggling with because of choices and decisions that I have made in the past, and I'm still dealing with some of the repercussions of that in the moment right now. But you have to know that God will be with you in the midst of it, and he will help you to lay that down at his feet. And whatever has happened or the choices you've made, he can use for good. He can use that if you give that to him today, whatever it may be that you've done. Or even if you're having trouble like finding out, like, who am I today? You know, like I just talked about, it's not always bad. Sometimes people can't let go of their glory days. You know, maybe it's high school. You're holding on to, you know, I was the head of the football team, and I was prom king or prom queen, and I had all these amazing trophies and awards, and you can't even like, well, what am I now? Who am I now? Well, God can show you, but you got to take that step, and you got to move forward and say, those were great days, but I need to move into a new chapter. God is always talking about different seasons. So we need to focus on the season that he has us in today. He can use the good and the bad, but you got to give it to him. You got to take that step forward, and you got to just know that God has different and better days for you ahead. So I hope this helped. I hope that you enjoyed it. God bless, and have a great rest of the week. Bye.